Hello guys, welcome to End Time Warriors. I'm broadcasting to you from somewhere at the end of time. Um, Today I wanted to share with you guys really quick. There is another webinar done by Paul Begley Prophecy, and he's been doing a lot of good ones lately. I would recommend this one. The only reason I'm really coming on and sharing this one with you guys is because once more, and I did this before on my old channel. Some of you guys may know my old channel was Niches of Narcissism. But I will share information that's too important to stay behind paywalls. I'm not going to tell everything in the conference, obviously. I'm going to really tell as small as possible so you guys can go check out the conference. And probably, if you guys ever see this video, it is probably on DVD. So if you go to paulbegleyprophecy.com, I think it is, check out their shop, and you can probably get a DVD of their webinar. I think it's called Planet X Effects, and it was done in January of 2022. So, basically, I would also recommend his channel to go and subscribe and pay attention to constant updates that he does about the weather changes that we've been noticing. This is something that I used to cover on my old channel, and I'll go over that really quick. I didn't know if I would ever come back on YouTube and share these things again, and I probably will not be on here nearly as much as I used to be at all. I don't plan on it, but I find it very edifying and fun, and I love to share and I love to help folks. So I mean, I don't know how much I'll be on here more, like how much more time we even have to share things, but I mostly want to upload like literal just reading the Bible, things like that, if I have time. But on my old channel, Niches of Narcissism, what that was I covered a lot about the end-time epidemic of narcissism. And then I really enjoyed doing that also, and it seemed like it helped a lot of people. And the more that things started changing in the world, as we can tell, it majorly increased in 2020, the more I just started covering prophecy, because I really felt led to do that. I felt like I had a gift in that. I would say my gift is teaching. Mostly because of my heart to help people. When people can't see things, it hurts me. It hurts me that things are hurting them because of something they don't know. I have to share, I have to tell. So anyway, so I was sharing when 2020 came. Actually, let's go back a little bit. In 2017, I started noticing and studying Bible prophecy more than I ever have. And I started noticing a pattern. And I have another video on this channel about that, so I won't go deep into that. But I noticed this pattern in the Bible about, it seems like every time we hit a decade mark of 2000, 2010, or 2011, 2001, 2020 to 2021, I was looking for something to happen, because it seems like on these decade markers, seals were opening possibly, or huge prophetic events in the world that looked like it could be horsemen. So I had been saying since like 2017 that 2020 to 2021 was a really big time, and that it looked like it had to do with the markets and the black horsemen and the weather. So, I mean, I have a few very important videos on this channel. You guys if you want to go check that out more in detail of what I had to say about that, because this one is about the Planet X Effects Conference. But just to kind of explain what happened before, because some people probably remember me before. I didn't get on video a lot. Some people probably remember me before because I saw people commenting that I deleted my whole channel, and I did, because I was already going to get off of that channel. I felt like its purpose was resolved like by 2020. The whole year I was trying to figure out when to get off. I realized that what I had kind of predicted in the Bible was happening at the year I said it would happen. Coincidentally, or too big to miss, or whatever you want to call that, the Lord showing me, whatever you want to call that, it was happening. And it did look like it was a third seal opening, and I kept saying that it probably was, and it was worldwide, and everyone wearing masks and being controlled, and you guys already know. So anyway, so 2020, I spent the year covering, I was pretty much done with the narcissism thing. I started going into Bible studies, covering that probably the third seal is here and why, and the weather. And I followed Bob Kudla and Adapt 2030 and Ice Age Farmer and a lot of weather people and Paul Begley. And so, bizarrely enough, guys, I had a weirdo that was stalking me, and it happens to YouTubers. You guys probably already know. And I just kind of kept it quiet. I didn't share with a lot of people because I had a few weirdos stalking me and making videos against me. And but I had this major weirdo who was a preacher, okay, and he was trying to curse me all in 2020 because he was so jealous. Like, number one, he was upset that my version of how I was showing Bible prophecy of there could be a tribulation before we're out of here. Not the wrath, not the hailstones, not the locusts, but a tribulation, an Antichrist tribulation could happen. And he was so jealous. He was so upset because he thinks he's a super high, arrogant, calling for national revivals, and he's way up here, and it's just one of those thin-skinned, histrionic psychopaths. And so my version of prophecy disturbed him because, first of all, I rejected him. I wouldn't go to his revivals and pay attention to him because he was evil, and that bothered him. So it was just like a progression over a few years there if he didn't like me. And then I consistently was showing what I believed would happen in prophecy did not match him being promoted, him becoming a well-known national name, and some things that I think he really wanted. Plus, I had said something big was coming in 2020, so when it started happening, exactly like I was saying, the weather and the wheat and the barley, he was so jealous, guys. He was so jealous, he was trying to curse me all in 2020. So there's like a double component of what happened to me in 2020. This guy was the doorway that Satan hit me with. I was viciously, violently, spiritually attacked in 2020, and that's where I've been. I'm way better. God has been really close. I've been in a lot of fasting and prayer and trying to prepare. I already thought I'm going to get off my channel and just get quiet with the Lord and prepare for what's coming. More personally. It just happened way more viciously than I ever suspected. But the bizarre thing is, the spiritual attacks that actually happened to me when this guy got super demonic and was saying he was going to teach me a lesson, and he was super upset with, like, I started sharing in Revelation to end my channel. He was very upset about what I shared in Revelation. Just reading chapter 3 upset him really bad, and I could feel that he was going so demonic that I told my sister, I was texting my sister, he might come and try to do something evil to me because I could feel how dark and evil it was. So anyway, okay, a truckload of the devil just hit me so hard, starting on September the 11th, and I'm not making it up. I didn't even notice that it was September the 11th till months later. I looked back on my calendar. I was writing down the bizarre things that happened, and September the 11th, I'm like, that's weird, but whatever. But over time, I've come to realize that's probably a prophetic sign on top of everything else. Everybody got tons of prophetic signs that year. I'm convinced. You personally got your own sign. So I'm here to say, the one person on YouTube screaming and hollering that the third seal is here, the third seal is opening this year, right now it's opening, gets hit by Satan and attacked by Satan on September the 11th, which is Red Alert Day of Panic Year on 2020. I don't think it's a coincidence, and it's bizarre, I know, but that's where I've been and what happened to me, and I am way better, thank God, and I'm still filled with the Holy Spirit. I've been filled with the Holy Spirit. It's felt so prophetic, because I've been filled with the Holy Spirit and close to the Lord and assaulted by hell. God showed me that this has to do with the white horse that we'll sit on with our white raiments when we're coming back, and that, we're going to lose everything, but we're going to gain Christ, and it's okay. It's been wild, like, for all of us. I'm blessed to even be here, but that's where I've been. I believe it confirms the sign that the third seal, that's probably what's happening. I'm always saying I'm going to wait and make sure that we see the food rationings happen. When I see the real hardcore food stuff hit, that's when everybody will start saying it. That's the black horse part of the seals opening. That's when I'll say that's what stage we're in. I don't know for sure yet. I'm going to wait till that happens, even though all this has happened to me. And so the vicious, wicked man who hit me on September 11th, I've just blocked him. He started cursing me about that week, and that's the day. That's the day. And he'd been trying to curse me all year, honestly. Okay, so that's weird, but that really happened, and I'm not making it up. And I do think that that's super important of everything that's been happening, and a sign of where we are in time, that maybe, I never wanted this to ever happen to me or dreamed that it would, and I didn't want to make a name of myself or make myself to be special or important at all. I'm just fascinated with prophecy. I love it. And I watch Paul Begley all the time, That's, he has Mike from Around the World on Thursdays, and I watch a lot of these channels all the time again. But that happened. Didn't expect it, and it's weird. And maybe more people would just look at me like I'm weird than think that that's anything cool or what, amazing. But the thing about prophecy, Abraham, when the prophecy came to him about his lineage, it was a deep horror. He went into a deep horror of a sleep, and the Lord told him about the slavery for 400 years during the covenant. So sometimes the things with the Lord is not, all glory and what we want and pleasing to the flesh. And I should probably be in a lot more fear and trembling and on my knees and on my face about everything. Maybe we all should, but I'm just letting you guys know, informative purposes. That's where I've been. That's what happened. It really did happen, in case that is helpful to you. So, just going to cover really quick on the Planet X effects. They went into this webinar that they had. They had 3 or 4 speakers, I believe. Mike from around the world, and Gil Broussard, and Steve Ben-Nun of Israeli News Live. And you guys may want to check out his channel too. I don't follow it super close. I just click on it if it seems like it's newsworthy, because I don't agree with all of his little teachings he does, mostly because I just can't really follow them. Anyway, I've seen some of these people in conference before. That was fun, before the virus and all that. So anyway, this was a webinar, and they're basically discussing what they've discussed a lot before about why we're seeing the weather changes and what it will culminate into, and about what time frames we can expect, and prophecy, because like I said, they were admitting too that we're probably in the seals. They didn't say the 3rd seal, but Gil did, but I'll get into that. So the Bible study that I have for this verse, in case you guys are not too familiar with what I'm even talking about, comes from Luke chapter 21. This verse talks about whenever this cataclysm comes, because they're kind of predicting from a Planet X theory, or planet systems that are moving toward our systems and causing all the weather catastrophes, that it's going to culminate to a point that's described in the Bible in Revelation chapter 6, toward the end, in the 6th seal, and in 3 of the Gospels, of this cataclysmic time where everything's going to be horribly shaken and disturbed, and in the skies and the heavens, there's going to be a massive change to the earth, and angels will literally appear and collect the believers. And I believe that's after the tribulation, because it says, quote, immediately after the tribulation. That's when angels collect believers. That's probably the rapture that people talk about. So it's probably immediately after the tribulation rapture, quote. Probably. We'll know when it happens. Apparently, we just mostly need to be repenting. So that's the time frame. People are saying when these horrible things are coming onto the earth, we're starting to see them, like on telescopes and people watching these things, like these speakers and the weather changes. So the Bible verse I have here, it says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. And here's the important phrase, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So my argument is, and these people are trying to describe, that something is already shaking the heavens. We can tell in the weather. This is what I was talking about when I said we're probably at the 3rd seal. And so, Mike from around the world, I think I watched him first. And, like I say, I'm not going to get into all of it. You guys can go buy the DVD. But he was confirming that the Earth is starting to tilt over, and so are all the planets and moons. They were talking about magmas, and the earthquakes, and why different nations of the world may become very desperate for resources, because they're not thinking rapture as their preparation and being in the Lord. They're thinking resources and how we're going to survive and set up afterward, right? Because the Antichrist system is going to sit here and try to convince people that he's going to have the 1,000-year reign like Hitler did. Hitler was like saying they were going to have a 1,000-year reign. Of course, the Lord's the one that's going to have the millennial reign. But they're going to be selling everybody on the earth, hey, we have thousands of years. Go ahead and take this mark so you can buy and sell and have convenience. Because we're going to be here, and we're going to be here for a long time. That's just something so important to please drill into yourself ahead of time. When they start rolling out with those systems, there is such short time. Like, don't take it no matter what. God will provide even when it looks like there's no way. He will provide a way out of that temptation. If you're here to see that, because it's not going to be expanding your life and making you live longer, or any of the things that they're going to be telling you. It's all lies. The only thing you can believe is the Word of God. And so they were talking about why the different nations of the world may become very desperate for food and fuel resources and water, and why we may see escalations in wars and things of power struggles. That may be part of it. Another part of the power struggles may be to be fooling people that there's wars that we need to, because the wars may become so horrible, right, that we need something to save us. Because now Russia and China are fighting, and now America's getting drug in, and we're all fighting, and it's becoming so scary because we could destroy each other because our tech is so powerful. Well, we need a savior. So it may be a bunch of fake wars that nobody's really trying to fight. They're just setting up fake wars so we can get rescued. And that's why everyone will embrace a world government, especially if it comes from outside Earth, like the alien theory, the alien demon theory. So they talked about that. Preparation for massive lies. All these speakers were talking about how these things have been studied by the governments behind the scenes for decades. And I agree. And I believe that's probably why a lot of these corporations, or these systems and government entities like NASA, JPL, Army Corps of Engineers, like Navy intelligence, was set up in the first place, was to so we could, the powers that be can see all of these things, can be watching them. And that could be, I mean, my conspiracy theory goes all the way to, that's why we were given electronics even. I think it's all fallen angel tech, that we were given electricity. It was put into the population about 1800 when we first hit 1 billion people. The Industrial Revolution was deliberately moved in, and the Enlightenment era, and everything was moved in to control the increase of human population, not only to control us, but to lead as many people astray as possible, and also to lead everyone toward, we have to get rid of this old paradigm of Jesus Christ and lead everyone toward Antichrist and New Age and Spiritism. There's supposedly many ways to light in life, and that way everyone will accept Antichrist, because they would have gotten rid of the idea of Jesus a long time ago. So a lot of them, at least a few of the speakers, were pointing out how whenever the astronomers first paid attention to Neptune and saw Neptune and watched its orbit, is when they first realized we don't have just a tight locked-in solar system. There's something else going on, because Neptune is not moving correctly, and the planets outer from Neptune. Those are the first planets that they noticed weren't moving correctly. They weren't just being affected by Jupiter and the Sun. There was other things affecting us, which means if they're affecting Neptune that heavily, they could affect us. And, I believe the powers that be probably had information that things had come before, but that's what they were looking at. So you may hear about that if you study these things. Mike keeps saying that the Earth weather is going to change super drastically, super fast. And I'm somewhere between, we don't have that much time, it's already changed so drastically it wouldn't surprise me, and how can it change that fast? I think Mike from around the world, my opinion of it is that he gives a lot of things that are going to happen after the cataclysm. He talks about what's going to happen on the earth during the trumpets and the vials, and he acts like it's going to happen in 2 years from now. So I think he always kind of calls it ahead of time before it actually happens. Not saying it's not going to happen. What I take that as, though, I don't criticize him on it. I just take it as he's doing the best he can. I appreciate it. And also that it's confirmation that it's coming soon. And Gil Broussard does a lot of that too. It's not to mock these people and laugh at them because they missed the calculation, but it's to say, wow, we are that close, because they're saying it already. Even though it may not be 2 years out, it may be more like 12 years out. They can see it already, and that says something. That says a lot when you're looking at 1,000-year time frames. But that's just my take on his calculations. He talks a lot about what's happening in the earth, in the sky, in the atmosphere, and in the underground, underwater quakes, and magma shifts underground. So that's very interesting. I would also like to point out a verse from Luke 2:11. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines and pestilences, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. And so at some point, like we're already seeing earthquakes and pestilence, and some famines are beginning more than ever. But at some point, we're also going to see the fearful sights and great signs from heaven. So what I've started wondering lately is, a lot of people are calculating that the great signs and sights are going to start in 2024 to 2029, and that could be the sixth seal cataclysm. But they're all saying, how can it happen that fast? So what we may be having information about is our first really great signs from heaven. And we may still be only in the third seal and starting into the fourth seal by 2029. That's a question I'm starting to have. Who knows, like I say, till it happens, but at some point I don't believe we have seen these fearful sights and great signs yet. Mike says that the governments of the world know that they need to finish up their plans this year, immediately. And he goes some into that if you guys want to go on ahead and look into it and get the DVD that they probably have out by now. One thing I found interesting is he said that you're going to see cryptocurrencies being introduced more and more. I shared this information with some people at my church, and I'm just assuming everybody knows about cryptos by now. Surely everybody knows about Bitcoin by now. And they were like, no, I've never heard of it. So you never know. It's just interesting. But he's saying that there's going to be this more and more and more information about cryptocurrencies because that it needs to be pushed next, soon. The cashless, and then the whatever they're going to have as far as moving us, transitioning us into the complete cashless society. Everything on computers as far as barter, sale, trade, buy, work, travel. And if the food situation becomes that intense, people are not going to be focused on money or jobs anymore. People have already not focused on jobs anymore, and it's already crazy stressful. They discussed the death rates have gone up 40% in the age range of 18 to 64. And that's from all kinds of things and lots of stress. And like I say, I was viciously, violently assaulted in 2020. I believe it was a prophetic sign, especially since it happened on 9/11. And I believe 9/11 is a very spiritual number and an occult number. I even think that we have been pre-programmed for decades even before the first 9/11 happened, which was probably the sign of that first seal either starting or coming soon, with the rollouts of all the takeovers that happen. If you look in Revelation for this first seal, it says conquer and to conquer. But we were pre-programmed for this for a long time, with 9/11 being put into our, some people think that was Jesus' real birthday, by the way, September the 11th. Who knows, while the occult focuses on that. But we were pre-programmed with this, with our 9/11 systems, right? And remember William Shatner would have that TV show, and he would say, Rescue 911. And those kind of themes have been put into our culture for decades and decades, to where that number to us means emergency. It's something important. And I mean, I know this is another thing you could roll your eyes at and say that's kind of silly, but think about it though. And the other day, there was this, not the other day, that was actually in 2021, the beginning of 2021, massive ice storm, and I was out trying to get fuels for somebody's generator, and there was no lights, and the power line was down, and I was out in this Jeep, and the power line was down on the road, and I got stuck on the road, because the Jeep, the four-wheel drive was not working right, and I called 911 on my little prepaid little phone. And I called 911 and was just letting the cops know I'm blocking your road, basically, and there's a power line down up here. And we eventually just drove past the power line because it was that crazy when the police came. So anyways, but I'm sitting there calling 911, and the dispatcher immediately said, well, let me figure out where you are so the cop can come find you. And she said, wait a minute, I can see that you're near this street number, and she named off this 4-digit number of this road I was on, highway such and such, house number XYZ. So I just walked like 40 feet down there, and I saw that house number was exactly what she said. From my phone, the 911 system, the local country rural 911 system, could tell exactly where I was. So I'm just letting you guys know it's all connected. And I think 9/11, I think it was just there's something occult to do with it. One of the signs, I kept seeing 9/11 patterns in all of the seals that opened. The second seal would have been in Libya, and our ambassador was sacrificed on 9/11 of 2012, which was another occult year. I'm not into numbers, not into numerology. I'm just saying. By the way, someone who would criticize that, because I have done so much soul searching and fasting and prayer, my vision has just got crystal clear from all the fasting, by the way. super close to God. I can almost like see Jesus in the clouds is what it looks like. And I need more spiritual growth even because I'm still pretty carnal and American. But that being said, that one of the things I criticized myself, like maybe I got too much into the numbers and into the patterns because I called it glorifying God, worshiping God, noticing He's coming, getting everyone else, it's kind of like Paul Begley does all the time, right? And being excited or, happy about the Lord's coming back and Bible prophecy is happening in my lifetime, our lifetimes, and how much we should be worshiping God and living holy lifestyles. And then I read in Ezekiel in different places how much it got into numbers and numbers of years and numbers that things happened. And I'm like, no, this is what wise men do. I'm not going to call myself a prophet or a prophetess because I probably don't want that role and I don't want the torture that comes with it or whatever, apparently, when you read what happens to prophets. But I will call myself like the wise men that came to the vineyard and warned like this wicked preacher that hated me. And of course, the preacher tried to kill me. And I believe God's Spirit has confirmed to me that I'm in that boat. I'm in the boat of Jeremiah in the pit, which, by the way, the last time that I was at a revival where that preacher was preaching, the wicked one, years and years ago, when I said, no, I'm not going back because he acted stupid there, the last thing he was preaching was how the wicked spiritual preachers and leaders of the church were putting Jeremiah, the true servant of God, into a pit. And then he started ranting and raging at me so bad, and I'm not even exaggerating, that's how crazy he was, why I didn't go back. He fell off the podium. He fell off the podium screaming at me of who do I think I am? And he almost tripped and fell on his face. Guys, it's just a crazy story. It really happened. But when I was reading in the Old Testament and the Bible, the people who studied these things, and we're not even go to the book of Enoch. Let's not even go there because that's full of it too. Full of numbers and patterns and cycles. But Revelation is, and I only stayed in Revelation. I did not even go to the book of Enoch or anything outside the Bible. I only stayed in the Bible. And I'm warning you guys, and I'm warning myself, that we don't even just need to study the patterns or even the weather. We need to really start studying sanctification, submission, trust in God, hearing the Lord's voice, no matter what, holiness, personal sacrifice, separation from the world, come out from among them and be you separate. And I taught a lot of that on my channel too, about how we're becoming so narcissistic. But yeah, I was reading in Ezekiel, and I think the Lord was just showing me, you're okay. You weren't really getting into numbers. God uses numbers, God uses these kind of patterns. He made them. Look at Genesis. Talking about how God puts the things that were in the heavens for signs. And it would be one thing if I was trying to use numbers and patterns to figure out what's going to happen in my life, and in something lustful, like, oh, I'm going to marry this person, or I'm going to get filthy rich. No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing your thing where people sit there with cards and divine and say, oh, number 3 showed up, so on the 3rd month of March, on the 3rd day, I'm going to get a new job. No, just no. That's the evil. That's not what I'm doing at all. So, but Ezekiel is filled with numbers and patterns and things like that too. And I think it was in Isaiah too and Jeremiah. So I'm like, no, that was God winking at me saying, don't worry about it. These people just hate you and they attacked you because you're following me. But the good-hearted person, that's something I covered a lot in my study of narcissism, the good-hearted person will sit there and be like, what did I do wrong? That's the first thing they'll do. I must have been doing something wrong, which is good. It's good to have a good conscience and always make sure where you stand with God. I don't want to get rid of that just because evil person is trying to convince me I'm wrong when I'm not, when they are. But gaslighting, part of the game. So Mike was talking to Paul about the atmospheres, and there's a huge crack in the Atlantic Ocean, and he gets into a lot of that. If you guys want to watch the Paul Begley channel on Thursday nights, I recommend it, because he constantly studies the earth and the weather and everything, politics with Paul on Thursdays. Their conclusion, I think, was look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. And whenever you start seeing these things really happening. So next, I will get into Gil Broussard. Gil Broussard is very helpful, even though he had a slightly different view than these guys. A lot of the people were saying that it's a planetary system, a whole nother binary system, like we have our solar system with the sun. There's another system that's coming through called the Nemesis system. has its own planets, and it's starting to, it'll really clash with ours as it comes through. But it probably won't ever like make solid contact with Earth because that's not in the prophecy. But as it comes through, it could cause problems, you can imagine. Eclipses, tiltings, the cataclysms that are described in the Bible at the end times. But Gil believes that there's more like a comet. And it's a very planet-sized comet. He calls Planet 7X. His website is called planet7x.net. And he studied a whole lot of patterns of eclipses and cataclysms and things that have happened in the past. So he's very interesting to listen to. And he's one that consistently was saying back whenever I was noticing it that we're at the third seal of Revelation. So that's interesting. And he said that there will probably soon be a global reset of the economy, which confirms, and that would be the third seal opening. So he don't think it's opened yet. I think the sign of it open was in 2020. The other two men that I heard saying about the third seal opening, by the way, was Bob Kudla of Trade Genius Academy. He used to get on Adapt 2030 channel and talk about the grain belts being destroyed by the weather, and he would quote from Revelation, third seal. But he wasn't saying third seal opening. He was just quoting from it a lot, like we're here. Tom Horn came right out on the Hagman Report and said, the elephant in the room is that we are at the black horseman of the economy is next. And I don't know, I need to study him a lot more because I think he's a very good intellectual that knows a whole lot. Like he co-authored this book that predicted that Pope Benedict would resign right before he did resign. And he's talking a lot about wormwood and the incoming comet. I think the name is Apophis, possibly being wormwood in 2029. I probably need to follow him a lot more and read his books. I believe he's really good. But for whatever his conclusions were, he also came to the conclusion that we're at the third seal. And hilariously, that was the Hagman Report back in the day, like a few years ago. Steve Quayle was on that interview, and Steve Quayle was desperately changing the subject. I went back, I rewound it. I was like, no. I'm going to listen to this again. Steve Quayle was desperately trying to change the subject, and I like Steve Quayle, desperately trying to change the topic off of Tom Horn, saying we got an elephant in the room. Thought that was interesting. Therefore, I think Steve Quayle knows something too, FYI. So there's that. All I'm going to say more about Gil Broussard is he has lots of numbers you may find very interesting. And they always bring up a lot of the biblical things that have happened in the past of things in the heavens. And my personal take on that is not everything might have been Planet X or Nemesis. There's probably a lot of things going on in the heavens we don't know about. That's just one of my takes on it, but possibly it was. And possibly it was just to give us these signs that we can calculate. But some of his work reminded me of John Moore's work, if you guys want to check out John Moore. But John isn't really like a dedicated, sold-out Christian only that thinks we're going to be raptured and to look for the Lord's return. Sadly, the scientists that are looking at this but are not expecting us to be raptured are very sad, in my opinion, of thinking that we're going to have to find a way to scrounge up our civilization through this and somehow make it. It's just sad. Most of us not make it, So, but Gil also noticed the massive volcanic meteor activity increasing lately. And that's really all I'll cover on what he said. Marshall Masters was interesting. He had really good pictures. I haven't really paid attention to the pictures of the so-called Planet X because I've considered it scamish, unprovable, would turn most people off. But since we're this close, I found some of his pictures and his sightings were very interesting because I think they first started noticing legit pictures from like a very high-tech university camera in 2012. That's when some of the first end-time predictions started. So I'm wondering if they predicted that we should be able to start seeing something important in 2012. And sure enough, our best cameras, secular cameras, picked it up. People that are not into conspiracy and not into Planet X picked it up. So I found that to be credible. And the fact that they have something that looked really much like a Nemesis system that would have been north of the ecliptic line of the sun in 2020. So I'm like, wow, there's another 2020 sign for you. And if a lot of this don't make sense, I would say get the DVDs if you want to know more. But Marshall Masters is very scientific and sadly very intellectual, but sadly not Christian. I don't think he's Christian. He believes in things like almost like astrally projecting and remote viewing. So that's all getting into the occult. So he's good for information, but he's not ready spiritually, and that's kind of sad when you see that. Like I said, but this Planet X theory comes with a lot of names, by a lot of names. I know that Planet X is just a catchword, a catchphrase, that it's more like a bodies or systems of bodies or even energies that could come and cause what the Bible calls, the best words for it is the powers of heaven shall be shaken. That's what I prefer to call Planet X. It's the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then we can speculate on the different reasons why. But because that to me is our scientific proof and fact, is that the Bible is saying the powers of heaven will be shaken. But he gets into a lot of the what has been viewed. Like I say, I didn't pay attention to it before, but now it's probably time to start paying attention to it, especially since some of it really is scientifically provable that something is out there and going on. I've heard more people talking about this, by the way, in groups that I part of and talk to, that they might not say Planet X, but they're saying something's going on in the heavens, and that's why the weather is different. And they were talking about it's hard to track earthquakes because that's being lied about and covered up, the increase, but you can watch things like what's going on in the heavens is increasing, and that's easier to track scientifically. So Marshall Masters had a whole lot of interesting information. If you guys want to pick up the DVD on this, what I found very interesting is they're trying to follow Newtonian physics with the few photographs and like telescope information that they have of what they have seen. And their best calculations is we've entered this time, which the weather seems to be, and the new pictures that seems to be confirming, we're entering the time where they're really just having to guess at, like, what you have is our solar system with the sun, and then as the parts of this solar system make an elliptical orbit around our sun, they're just now being visible where they're coming to our side of the sun, or a visible side. So there's a lot of questioning and question marks of how long will it take this to like slingshot around our sun. And they're saying we could be within a 10-year zone, but we could be within a 20-year zone too, probably, would be my input in there. But in case, we could be in a 10-year zone. They're calling 2026 to 28 a danger zone of how close everything could be to us. And by the way, Adapt 2030 channel, I forget the guy's name on there, Dave Dubine, I think. Totally not Christian, but and he's totally on a different theory of we're in, what is it called, where the sun shuts down, that happens there periodically. But he's not thinking binary system, or at least he doesn't say it. And another cool channel to watch, by the way, is Deep South Homestead. Deep South Homestead channel, they are following other Pentagon sources, and they have a Patreon you guys may want to get on. I haven't got on it yet, where they have some of this very same information from a whole different set of people, apparently. It's Really News Live supposedly has a good Patreon. I haven't checked that out either, with like Pentagon information. But Dave Dubine is saying that 2024 will start a very interesting time in space weather, because we'll be on one side of the sun and all of our big giants will be on the opposite side of the sun, and this hasn't happened for like 2,000 years. So with the big giants on the opposite side of the sun, they will be pulling debris onto the earth more than ever, starting, I think he said, spring of 2024. And so just some timelines that keep coming up that within the next 10 years we may start seeing these heavenly signs and great sights that, disturb people or cause more people to wake up, hopefully. But Marshall Masters is calling 2026 to 28 a danger zone because of how, as this system moves around the sun, it could be coming closer to Earth and causing problems. Could be when the cataclysms may happen, but I tend to think that it's possible we have another 20 years. It's deliberately to where you can't calculate it. I will say that, and it's kind of foolish probably to sit there and try to calculate that more than focusing on God's will, glorifying God, being closer to the Lord, and less of me and more of Him. So his information, Marshall Master information, matched a whole lot of what Mike from the World has been saying as far as increased weather, the weather worsening on the earth. And he did say that his research was depressing until he just started looking more to God and saying this is all just very, he went into like a terrible despair. Without God, it's all just very depressing. So, but he still believes in all of this remote viewing. So, the only warning I give there, not to criticize, but just to say, as a devout Christian, I stick more with the Holy Bible, that this is about Jesus coming back and we need to completely belong to Him. We need to be not our own, but bought with a price, and we don't need to be doing anything dangerous like remote viewing or promoting it. Which you may just not know the dangers of it. Some people don't know the dangers because they think that it's used for good. I've heard that before. He did a lot of discussion about Bible history too that was interesting. So I think that's all I had to cover for what Marshall Masters had to say. The other main speaker was Steve Ben-Nun of Israeli News Live YouTube channel, and he has a iConnex, I think is the name of it, channel where he can say more. He has a Patreon that I really need to get on, but I haven't yet, in case you guys are interested in that also. That's the Israeli News Live YouTube channel with Steve Ben-Nun. I was at a conference before where he was in conference with John Moore, Clyde Lewis, Paul Begley, and somebody else, I think, where he gave the little green file. He gave this little green thumb drive to Paul Begley about the astronomers were had information about a Planet X and all of this. That was a while ago. I think that was 2018. And that was the year, I think later on, no, that was 2019. I think that was early 2019. Because late 2018 in the fall is whenever I saw like the shadows were changing. The sunlight changed so drastically. It was like a beginning of time where you could see the heavenly changes. You could even see it visibly. But I just attribute that to how sensitive I am, and I pick up details real easy. And I think the Lord highlights things too in my mind. So that may be what that was too. But everybody's getting every sign they need for salvation, for knowing what time it is and how important it is. But sadly, Steve and Paul, after that conference, they started somehow fighting on YouTube. But apparently they're kind of back together now, at least sharing information. So I'm glad to see that. But Steve had a lot of interesting information because he said he's been working with the Pentagon and what they're watching because things are so close. And as we know, they formed the Space Force under Trump. Whoever the president was going to sign some of these things into action. This wasn't a Trump idea for Space Force. I believe that was not just Trump. That was going to happen because we have to have a way to try to help what's coming. But he had some interesting information of what he's been hearing from the Pentagon because he said he's in regular meetings with the Pentagon now as far as they appreciate his information of being able to help study things that have happened in the past with Earth. They're very interested in how spiritual this may become, how physical, how much warfare, what may appear. And this gets into some, like we know, when the system comes. They know there's a system coming or something, but they're looking at when it comes, what may come with it as far as historically there were beings, and this could trigger events of spiritual beings appearing or spiritual beings coming out from the earth or from other dimensions or from comets or whatnot. It's bizarre, but he had a lot of other bizarre information that you may or may not believe. So that's another reason you guys may want to check out this DVD. He confirmed that the Vatican is watching it the closest and has the best information, supposedly, because I believe they're part of the Great Deception. They're going to say things like, we had all this information from the Alexandria Library, didn't all burn, we've kept it in our basement, let's pull it all out, oops, we forgot to tell you that Jesus wasn't real, and here's his bones, by the way, he didn't resurrect. And I mean, get ready for any kind of deception from those people, honestly. They could pull out with anything and everything and say that they gave us Muhammad, they gave us Jesus, the aliens gave us all, the aliens put us here to be slaves and dig gold, or whatever you hear from the ancient alien theories. But they gave us all our fake religions. They're going to pretend like everything's fake, including Jesus and the Bible. They gave us all this fake stuff to try to make us sweet and nice, but we're fighting, so they're back, and they're going to save us. There's always this good alien. I know this is bizarre, but this is what's happening, so be ready in case you hear it. The good and the bad alien stories of we have to be protected from the bad aliens, and this is stuff that Russ Dizdar used to teach about. Like years ago, I heard him talking about this on his radio shows about get ready for the good and the bad alien, all kind of stories we may be told about things we need to be protected from. So we have to just give up everything, give all of our rights to this new world leader, and we know who that's going to be. The Vatican is going to confirm everything with proof and evidence and scientific facts. Get ready for science to be pushed in your face even more. What the Bible calls science falsely so-called, is that some of that? Then, so he gets into like what all has been being watched for how long, and I studied this a lot before. I may put that documentary back up on my channel, because I studied all this out before, how long the government's been watching this. That goes back to, I believe, the NSA and NASA, and a lot of this came out whenever the Nazis moved over, the Nazi demonic studies moved over to Russia and the U.S. after the World War II. These were all founded to help really set up the world for what's coming, including the elites want to watch how close something is getting and where it's at. And so there's no telling what all is actually being watched and what caused our agencies to be founded in the first place and controlled, and like our space agencies. Steve gets into there's a private space agency we don't know about and how complex that is. But if you notice, in the Bible, after the cataclysm comes at the sixth seal, what follows into the trumpets looks like a lot of supernatural appearances of beings, like locusts out of pits that are unlocked, and a supernatural 200 million man army. And so it looks like there's supernatural. That's what Russ Dizdar used to talk about, is don't be surprised. I think with that's after the rapture is what my personal belief is, because the sixth seal, I believe, is the rapture. Then you have the wrath poured out with trumpets and vials. I believe that's how it goes. And but it does look like there's supernatural beings appearing, so that could be what they're asking Steve about, and he gets into some of that, and that's interesting, and he goes into detail. And so if you guys want to know about that specifically, I would say get this DVD and or get on Steve DeNoon's Patreon, because I believe he covers a whole lot about these topics on his Patreon, more even than he did in this conference, in this webinar. A lot of these speakers' information was confirming each other as far as the changes coming to Earth and what the governments are all getting ready for, something imminent. And Steve says we will be told eventually that there's a planet number 9, maybe, or something like that. Get ready for a deception of an Egyptian goddess coming back to help Earth, and the pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids, are going to be used for power sources, possibly. It makes you wonder, like, they may get turned on after an EMP. Who knows? But if we really are at the third seal, what to me is concerning, and maybe why everyone's getting hit so hard. Like, guys, what hit me, I was calling worse than death. Worse than death. If you guys need a sign, right? I believe we've all gotten our sign. But basically, you know, I'm thinking what I'm personally being shown is we have a lot less time than I even thought, because I was going to shut down my little channel and just focus on getting ready for what I thought was the tribulation, and getting so much closer to the Lord. And I have. This is not the way I would recommend doing it, but anyway, they were talking time frames and timelines, a lot of these people, and they were saying things like the government is preparing for something to come by 2029, severely massive world changes by 2030. But a lot of us are like, how is there time? Unless the tribulation somehow starts next year. And I do have a theory that guys, it would just have to be a massive rollout of tech that we don't see yet. We have a lot of it here. And some people are saying that when the G, if you know what my signal here I'm trying to give is, the G system comes on board, that there will be a lot of tech that's rolled out instantly, fast. So it could happen. Especially, I mean, something like I've always said, a major cataclysm would help start unrolling things very quickly, right? And sure enough, with the virus, that happened. Massive change quickly. But this was like one of the, I hate to say, better ways that it could have happened, other than taking a whole grid down or a world war event. But sadly, that may be what's next, especially if you are looking at Pale Horse next. But the fifth seal, I've been looking at the theory that the first four horsemen is what sets up the entire world with the fifth seal tribulation Antichrist system. That's why they're called horsemen. They roll out, and not that is the tribulation where the white horse is the Antichrist that we see already, but that rolls out and prepares the entire world, and somewhere in there the Antichrist starts showing up. And it's possible because at the fifth seal you have martyrdoms from the tribulation. I believe that's what that is. So the fifth seal is saying that the tribulation happens somewhere at the fifth seal or before. At the fifth seal, but possibly before also. So if we're in the third seal, the tribulation could start at any time, so that's true. But the fourth seal would have to be super quick. And if these seals have been on the decade marks, then suddenly, after the first three seals, the next seals are just going to open immediately, faster, which is possible. Another thing there is Steve Ben-Nun on his channel. I went and looked at it later. He said that there's two comets that the government's watching that are coming 2024 and 25 that's very serious. But a super very serious one is going to appear in 2029. I'm not sure if that was a Apophis or a different one. They're looking for its damage to be done 2030, 2031. So it's possible this thing could just stretch out forever and ever and ever. And you have everyone saying, where is the promise of his coming, and mocking. And that the great signs from heaven would be 2029. And the cataclysms from that could start out the Pale Horse. So we could have the Pale Horse starting in 2030, just like everything else has been on schedule. And then sometime the tribulation beginning after that also. So that could happen too. It's just it's deliberately to where we can't calculate it, because that's not even what we're really supposed to be doing, just warning people that things are happening according to the Bible. So basically, there's theories that things could wrap up quickly, like by 2030, or that we still have another 20 years. What's really hard, the two things I look at for calculating that's hard to see things lasting for 30 more years, is the fig tree theory that Israel became a nation in 1948, and then how long do you have for a generation there? Do you have 100 years to 2048? Do you have 80 years to like 2028? Or, because that lets you know that something's going to happen in the generation that we see Israel form. But what is a generation? How long is that? 100 years, 120 years? Also, the weather. How much longer can we keep seeing this weather escalation? And the space things escalating, and how long is this slingshot theory going to happen with this nemesis system around the sun? Could be 20 years, could be 30, but just everything together, I don't see things lasting 30 more years. Let's put it like that. Maybe 20, but not 30, especially if we start seeing the food situation, because another consistent thing I believe about conspiracies and you could say doom predictions is that generally they're predicted a lot more dooming and a lot more quickly than they actually happen. Like a lot of people said that the jabs were going to make everybody dead this winter that took them, because their body would not have any immunity from the virus. And I figured, because I've listened to AJ and a lot of people for a long time. I haven't listened to him in a few years, but to where usually whoever came out with doom's predictions, like there was a doctor, a natural doctor that really tried to help people with the virus, and people basically usually overpredict the doom. So it's not going to happen as badly. It may start as the time escalates, I hate to say, but it usually doesn't happen as badly and as quickly because of things like prayer, and God has his own timing and he has mercy. So that's just a pattern I've noticed for the past 15 years or so that I've studied all this. So you may find Steve Ben-Nun's information interesting enough to go on his Patreon. I have not yet. And he's saying they want to religiously trick everyone, and the game of the devils is lying. They're lying to people with dumb questions about Why would Satan never kill Jesus if he knew who he was? And they're they're trying to have things like, well, he didn't really know who Jesus was, but they're also, the thing with the devil is he could have killed him knowing who he was, just with the pride of thinking he could actually do it. It's the narcissism thing. The pride and the hastiness is blinding. It's a lot of blindness in the kingdom of darkness. And I also believe that he's talking about how a lot of people are fooled by the technology we have now, like HARP and I've studied some of these things before, like CERN, obviously, of thinking that, oh, we're this powerful, we can change timelines. I've seen them try to. That reminds me of the verse that the Antichrist will practice and prosper in Daniel, and fool everyone and fool himself probably, and thinking he's just all powerful. No flesh may survive if he keeps being allowed, maybe like with these quantum computers and stuff, to just go in and try to reprogram the world and just kill people instantly with just taking over molecules and reality and no telling what else. And it reminds me of that movie, The Langoliers, I saw decades ago. Just bizarreness. But thinking that the Antichrist thinking that he will think to change the times. The theories that there's alternate realities and we're jumping timelines and the Mandela effect. There is a connection somehow between a theory of a Mandela effect and CERN. That's connected whether or not it's real or not. Haven't come to my conclusion on that. Other than if they're really changing things, we shouldn't be deceived by that. The Word of God will still come true to every jot, every tittle. I believe Jesus totally on that He's in control of it all. Any rope that the devil or the narcissists ever get is to hang themselves with. So don't be fooled by anything. Don't be fooled by them saying they can take the moon out of the sky, that the moon was just a robot or a spaceship. Don't be fooled by anything. If they can change your whole landscape right in front of you, don't be fooled by it. That would be my warning. I'm trying to be prepared to not be fooled by anything, because whatever fooling trickery is going on is only fooling the evil side, not us, because we have the Word of God and the truth. Our souls are sealed. We are bought with a price. They're the ones that are fooling their own selves with all of this sorcery. Because even if they can pull a Mandela effect and they think they can change a few words in the Bible or whatever, a lot of this, don't have time to get into the fakery of the Mandela effect. But basically, the Antichrist is going to think to change times. And I believe what a lot is going on there is they're going to do things that are so tricky and scientific and deceptive. Just get ready, is what I'm saying. My main warning here is get ready, and this is why I'm dangerous and I don't need to ever become known. And people like me, there's a lot of people like me, I'm not special. This is why Satan would want to attack people and shut them down, is being able to see, be confident about it, and warn and not even care, even after being hit by Satan, is because the whole trickery that Steve was getting into that I could just see is with these powerful technologies that could supposedly open up and swallow whatever's coming or whatnot. They're going to be tricked by that foolishness, not us. The Word of God will never change, and it will be fulfilled down to, like, Jesus may have to shorten the time, like he said, or all flesh would die. He may have to shorten the time, but they can't outdo the one who inhabits eternity. I mean, Jesus is, and the Father God is beyond anything they can do with space-time. They may get, so all that tells me, like with all the way they change technologies, is that's how desperate Satan is. That's how desperate he is to try to win who the late Russ Dizdar said is their main battle they're preparing for, is Revelation 19:19. Don't be surprised at what you see. Technology, hybrids, strange beings, things changing in front of your face. Don't be fooled by any of it. And I warned about that before on my old channel. So that may be what they're trying to do with changing times and technology. And so he got into some of that. But that would be my warning on it, is it could be very, very tricky. But that trickery is what's the best that Lucifer could come up with in his genius. The best that he could come up with. Powerful, powerful angel and fallen angel technology. That's the best they're having to come up with to try to number one, win the Battle of Armageddon. They're literally trying to win the Battle of Armageddon. And number two, if they can't do it, they're trying to trick all these lower level people. And Steve got into it. There were some of these middlemen like Biden who were laughing and convinced that CERN could outdo whatever was coming. He said that verbatim, and that's exactly what the deception is. That's all I'm saying about that. Satan is tricking these high power Satanists, elitists, Illuminati groups, you name it, middlemen, middle managers. He's trying to fool everybody that he has the tech to win the Battle of Armageddon. And he's probably trying to do it. But that's my take on that, what that is. Then Paul and Heidi had kind of like their recap of everyone, and I appreciated that because Paul just came out and said, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I was like, when I heard this, I was like, yes. He came out and admitted the first seals have probably already opened. Thank you. Because a lot of people are out there teaching, and Paul is really good about just being, I'm not going to nail anything down. Maybe the rapture is before the tribulation, maybe it's during, and maybe it's after, because he's just trying to get everybody saved and all this, and not start fights. But with the information that was going on at this little webinar, he was saying the first seals have probably already opened. And I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's what the church needs to start seeing and saying right now. We don't need any more of these tricking everybody that we're not going to see anything in Revelation. We will see nothing. There's so many people that believe we will see nothing in Revelation until we're raptured. Because the rapture happens and then the Antichrist comes at the first seal. And I'm like, where do you get this from? This is tradition. This is only tradition. It's not even logical. And it's teaching people to be terrified. And I need to become more appreciative of like the fear of God. That's the only thing that scares me about the end times is I want to make sure I'm ready to meet my Maker face to face. That's the only fear I have. Fear of God. Everything else is pale. Nothing compared to that. Nothing at all. And maybe that's a problem I have where I'm not fearful enough, or, the Bible warns about not being fearful, though. Don't be fearful of anything but God. But thank you. The first seals have probably already opened, and that's what I believe the church deserves to know that and to not be tricked in any way, and we deserve to have that information and to be knowing that that's what's going on so that we're not fooled and tricked or surprised or overcome or overwhelmed or deceived into things like taking a mark of the beast, honestly. There's a lot of people that are like, girl, we're out of here, but people are being prepared in their heart. I can see it. People are being prepared for hardship completely. So they covered a little bit more very, very interesting things that they just recapped what everyone had been saying. A lot of interesting information from space. I got a little more clarity from watching it. As much as I've studied all this, I got a little more clarity of what's going on very recently. And Paul recapped, I appreciate it, he recapped that the wrath does not come until the seventh seal. And the church may be here to see the first 6 seals. I was like, thank you, exactly. And they're going to have a new webinar in March, I think March the 11th. Called a climate crisis webinar, and those tickets should already be up on Eventbrite under Paul Begley. And so I appreciated, I think that's going to keep happening. As the time gets closer, there's going to be more people that are just going to have to come out with the truth. And my theory is that whenever there comes to serious rationing and control with the food and famines everywhere that they can't hide, is when a lot of people are going to start coming out and saying we're at the economy horse. They may think all the horses are opening at the same time, and they may not understand that the fourth seal hasn't opened yet, but they're going to at least recognize this has got to be the black horse because of the weather and the wars and the food. And so I think when the food situation hits, especially 2 years into it, people are either going to be saying grand solar minimum and going secular routes and saying, we have another thousands of years on earth, or the Christians that believe the Bible are going to be saying we're at the third seal. So I appreciate what they said about the first seals have probably already opened, and the wrath doesn't come into the seventh seal. I completely believe in that. That the sixth seal is the rapture between 6 and 7 seal, and that they're trying to help people to get ready in their spirit and their soul. So that Jesus is coming back, and we need to be close to God. That is our only hiding place here, and the only thing to be afraid of. No need to fear what's coming on the earth. So that's all I have for their webinar there. For now, I may do another one on their weather climate crisis if I get that one. But if you guys want to know more about that, I would say go to paulbegleyprophecy.com and check out, they should have DVDs, or go to their channel. You should be able to look around and find. If I find where they're selling DVDs, I'll probably put a link in the description box. Because by the time this gets out, they'll probably have DVDs going on. I may have a link to the conference if that's happening for a while too. So I think it's very important, very pertinent. That's why I made a whole video on it. And I'm just a firm believer everybody should be knowing this, and it should be becoming more known information, especially among believers, to have the answers of what's coming, because the world will try to come in there with their answers, and I just don't believe in people being that blinded. So I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments. I will see if I can be helpful, and share with anyone you think may also could use this information. So God bless you.